Hey, it's the Morning Brew. We're back. I'm Larry Aaron, still in Hawaiian mode. Like the shirt, Dan?
It's great. I
Thank
love
you.
it. Yes.
I'm
You
thinking
got a little bit of tan. You got the
Yeah,
color, some
yeah.
vitamin D. It's,
Yeah.
Looks like you had a nice time out there.
Yeah, it was great. Went snorkeling, chased a few turtles.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was just awesome. Yeah, it was great. All right, we're back to work here on the Morning Brew. Back to business, and Nika Allen is filling in for Amber today, and I'm Larry Aarons. And Dan Mayfield, thank you for filling in last week.
Oh, it was a blast. Anytime. Anytime. Had a blast.
You look good on TV.
Well, thank you. Thank you. In real life, not so much.
We're going to let you go back to your real job
Yes,
this week.
a regular job. Being a business first reporter and writing about all kinds of great stuff downtown right now.
Okay,
And
let's
Lyft
talk
and
about
Uber.
that.
You guys were talking about Lyft and Uber. You're a
Yeah.
tech person. And this is the thing I've been trying to explain to people. And it's a very fascinating thing. Lyft and Uber are taxi services. Not really. And that's
right.
this whole thing. And of course, the state is now, they've issued an insurance warning against the companies in saying that the drivers are not really drivers. They're supposed to be your buddy, but you just call, and they happen to have a phone number and a website like a company, but it's just your buddy getting picked up. You know, it's like if you were to put on Facebook, who will take me to the airport? I'll give you $10.
That would be
And
the
someone
same
picked you
thing
up.
as Lyft and Uber, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially, except Lyft and Uber, except you pay Lyft and Uber the money, then they pay the driver. They're an intermediary service.
I see.
And that's where this interesting state law comes into effect of whether or not they are a compensated carrier or not.
Yeah.
So the state regulates anybody, like a moving truck, like a taxi, like a limo service, and you have to file simple stuff like insurance requirements, and you have to meet driver's background checks and maintenance schedules with your car, that kind of stuff. And so now Lyft and Uber do that on their own, and so if they're doing all that stuff and meeting the state regs, well, shouldn't they just be a taxi anyway? And
Seems to me they should.
so it's been this weird, interesting thing in many states. California was like, whatever, it's a social media app, and you can just plug it in and go, and they look at it as technology.
Exactly.
New Mexico is looking at it as a taxi service for the moment. And I think it's going to be a fascinating debate to have whether or not these kinds of services are actually taxis, inexpensive, quick, fun taxis, or they are...
Now, I want to make sure I understand
Yeah.
how this works. So you would be a driver with Uber, is that
Yes.
it? Let's say.
I've got the app on my phone.
Okay.
And all you do, if you want to be a rider, you pull up the app and you say, I want a Lyft.
I
And
need
it's
to go to the
spelled
airport.
You need to go to the airport. And you don't even have to tell them where you're going. You just hit the button.
You just
Wow.
you lift, and they contact you.
And they actually, it's even cooler than that. It shows you a little picture of the car, and it lights up on the screen.
Oh,
and
wow.
You get to see the car on the GPS map
Watch
coming
them
to you.
come to you.
Yeah.
Wow.
No kidding.
And
That's just the coolest thing ever.
yeah, and so when you see the car pull up, you can walk out, hop in the car, and you know each one, Uber and Lyft, have their own different things. Like the Lyft people want to fist bump you, and the Uber people are all in their hoodies, and they have this thing. They have their own little
Corporate
Yeah.
signature
yeah,
thing.
Exactly.
Of course.
and you hop in the car, they say where you going, and then they plug it into their GPS, and you go. And they don't have a meter like a taxi. Instead, it's metered via the GPS on their phone.
Oh.
So it's still a metered transportation service.
Yes.
So
Yes. And that's where is it metered transportation, or did you just call a friend for a ride?
And
I
isn't
think
it something
both.
like donation based?
It's donation based, kind of, but not really. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to pay, but you really should
Yeah,
pay.
yeah.
And they rate you, so if you don't pay, you'll probably never get picked up again.
There you
now,
go.
what are the insurance issues with this?
Okay, the state with a compensated carrier requires $1 million insurance liability coverage in case something catastrophic, something horrible happens.
Kind of makes sense.
It does. And for Lyft and Uber both, you pay an extra $1 on top of your main fee. It just goes to an insurance policy that they have for the drivers.
Well, that makes sense too.
That makes sense. But because you're in a buddy's car, in a friend's car, there's weird state things that say you might be held responsible, or you could be held partially responsible. There are other issues involved in this versus a taxi cab that is all on the driver and the company.
Yes.
Interesting.
And yeah, and even though, there's all kinds of weird, it gets pretty deep dive and inside baseball very, very quickly when you want to talk about it. But I look at it as it's come down to the sharing and trust economy. It's
Which
finally
is a
coming to-
whole new phenomenon,
It's a whole
really.
new phenomenon. Yeah, have you done Airbnb?
I haven't yet, but I've learned a lot about it.
Which is
so,
great. Yeah, and this is people who are renting out their own home or their own
We
spare
talked about it
bedroom.
on vacation.
I'm sure, yeah, you probably even thought about doing that in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great. You know, you can just show up and rent somebody's beach house in Hawaii for
Sure.
a couple of days.
Yeah.
And there's this interesting thing that happens is that you're trusting that that beach house isn't going to be falling apart, and they're trusting that you're not going to make a mess of their house.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And it's the same thing with cars now. So
And the powers that be want to keep the power that they've accumulated.
yes and no. You know, this is interesting because cabbies now also have systems that are working. Some there's actually a service in Albuquerque called Call a Cab, and it's a GPS-based cab system that's been operating for 3 years in town, and it's kind of this midpoint between the two, and it's interesting. And I talked to Gary Opedal, the mayor's director of economic development, about this the other day. We were talking about, what does this mean? And he says, well, why are we bothering to regulate cabs, not regulate these guys? And why do we want to put more regulation on these Uber and Lyft ride-sharing services? Why not remove the barriers for taxi cabs?
There you go.
Work to do that. That way, the taxi cabs can be much freer. They can charge different rates. They can charge less expensive rates.
Right, they can
do
be
other things
competitive.
They can
and
be competitive. Yeah, exactly.
And so that seems to be the consensus in New Mexico right now, is that rather than trying to regulate these guys, deregulate the other guys. And that was a policy that was something that was brought up, I think, New Mexico years ago. And it passed into 2013 legislation that would make it easier for these kinds of services to operate in New Mexico.
This is interesting.
It's fascinating, and the idea of the sharing economy coming to New Mexico finally, after 3 or 4 years of it being really an everyday thing in San Francisco, LA.
Yeah, the bigger cities have it everywhere now.
That's exactly it. And if you go to Chicago or something and you see the black Cadillac Escalades or the black
the car services.
car services, most of those are now Uber cars. And
Interesting.
so it is, and it's fascinating. I'm loving it. And
Yeah, I am
It's
too.
a great debate. And right now, I'm curious. This is the news that actually came out this morning in Albuquerque Business First, is that the state has now launched an investigation into Lyft to find out if they are indeed a compensated carrier service or not. And it's just a preliminary investigation. They don't know yet. So they're going to ride the service. They're going to interview people. They're going to look at the business model, check out the plan, and see. And I can't wait to see what the results of an investigation like that could mean.
I can't wait to follow the story. I'm
It's
just
gonna be great.
so fascinated by
Yeah,
it.
I took a
really
lift to
am.
work the other day. It was fun.
Really?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
cool. How fun.
Personal experience.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about downtown. And there's a lot of buzz about reconfiguring downtown into.
Absolutely. Did you guys go to the rail yards yesterday?
No, I heard
It
all.
was a blast.
Was
It
it?
was packed. People all over. The rail
Good.
yards, it was full.
This is a good sign.
Yes,
Yes,
that's so
yes.
great. They really needed to do something constructive with that space.
Absolutely, for
Definitely.
decades.
Yes.
And
yeah.
so it's great. It's a market now. It looks beautiful. There were food trucks, people. I mean, it was.
It was happening.
It was a
Wonderful.
madhouse. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. And there's parking. It's perfect. But now the city's going to be putting out an RFP for that lot that is on the corner of First Street and Central, on the
Okay.
northeast corner there. This has kind of been a city-owned parking lot for a while, to basically make an entertainment spot there of some kind.
Wow.
And the way the RFPs work is they don't really know what it would be, but they're looking for the highest and best
Ideas.
use, as it were.
Yep.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens with that, and that could be a nice kind of spot right between where the Innovate Albuquerque incubator is going to be, and the co-working space at C&M down the street, and also across the street from my office, which would be awesome.
I know. I live downtown. I'm so excited for everything that's
Yes.
happening there. I was just talking to Gary Opedal the other day too, and he was telling me about everything that's happening, and I just got more and more excited. I'm never moving from downtown
That's it.
Albuquerque.
That's it. Between that and the 4th Street Mall,
Yeah.
and the city right now is pursuing a $15 million Tiger grant for that. And that's not really it's a complete reconstruction, demolition, reconstruction of all of 4th Street to turn into
Wow.
a one-way going south.
Wow.
That way, it's been kind of a strange little spot in downtown that some people just don't like to walk down. I'll leave it at that. And
Yeah.
from T. Harris and Civic Plaza all the way to Central.
Yeah.
And people don't often feel comfortable walking in that, which should have been a nice pedestrian mall.
It should have been.
And it never really saw its full potential.
Yeah.
So the city is redeveloping that whole street, and they're going to put parking in, and also it's going to be a little bit windy and curvy to save the trees. and to save
nice.
and to save the patios that a lot of businesses have there that they rely on.
I love that about
Yeah.
downtown.
That might help it.
Yeah, it's a
couldn't
great
hurt.
idea. Yeah, it couldn't hurt. And the city's trying to get it's a $15 million federal Tiger grant. And don't ask me what the Tiger acronym stands for, but it's something that the city thinks it can get
I
to
like
help
it.
make it happen.
I like it.
Yeah, it'd be great. So between Innovate ABQ, a new entertainment district, the rail yards, 4th Street, and that development, C&M moving in, there should be
Good stuff.
a lot
lot
of great
happening.
stuff moving in. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks again for
Anytime.
doing the
Thank
job
you.
last week
Anytime.
here on the morning.
And you're going to have fun doing it this week
I'm
with
so
Larry.
excited.
Yes.
Be here all week.
Thank you, Dan. Dan Mayfield, everybody, with Albuquerque Business First. Nick Allen is here. I'm Larry Ahrens, back from vacation. And we'll continue this Cinco de Mayo show. Stacy Sacco on the program next.